Hey everybody, welcome back to Algebra 2 Online. So I just wanted to do one more problem actually related to graphing sine and cosine. My last video went a little long and I wanted to try to fit this in, but just didn't have time. So we did a bunch of graphs where I gave you an equation, graph the sine and cosine function. It's important that you can also go the other way. So if I give you a graph like this, you should be able to come up with an equation. And we talked before how this idea that like sine of x can equal cosine of x minus pi over 2, right? How like they're really very similar graphs, just shifts of each other, right? So there's actually a term in math called sinusoidal function, and that basically means sine or cosine function. Because it's not clear if you look at a graph, like which one it is, you really can choose either one. So one of the things I would do is if I'm ever asked to write an equation from a graph like this, and I know it can be a sine or a cosine graph, I would think which one is it kind of closer to? And what I mean by that is, does it look like more like a sine graph, which would be kind of generally looking like that? Or does it look like a cosine, which would be kind of looking like that? So this one's your cosine, right? And this one's your basic sine graph. So when I look at this one, right, I can see that if I just shifted it just a little bit over, the peak would be at 1. And that is where cosine's peak is, like on the y-axis. It's it would be up there. And so I'm going to make a graph that's a cosine. That's kind of how I'm going to do it, okay? And then basically the rest of it, you just kind of go through working backwards. Like we can see the period literally, which is really nice. So, we can see that to get back to that peak, we go from 1 to 7, which is 6 units, right? So the period is 2 pi over b, right? But my period I know now is 6. And this will tell me b, right? So if I just solve this for b, it'll say that b is, you just cross multiply, right? You get 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3. So I've got my b. You can also see that we're going from 1 to negative 5. So halfway in between, like the midline thing would be, that's 6 units, right? So you got to go up 1, 2, 3. Looks like negative 2 would be the midline. And I'm only doing that because I want to find the amplitude. So I can see that this distance from here to here, right, is 3 units. And it's the same from there, up to the top too. So 3 is the amplitude, so my A equals 3. That's going to be something I'm going to need, right? And then we also talked about how if I just shift it a little to the left, it'll be perfectly a cosine, right? So I want to shift it. I want to shift it to the the right to get it over here. So this is basically what I'm saying. I guess I should be more clear here. So we've got an amplitude of 3. We're going to make a cosine. We know b is pi over 3. If I don't have a shift, and we also know that, the middle, normally it's zeros are on the x-axis, but we've shifted that down. It's got it's not symmetric with the x-axis, it's down 2. So we've got minus 2 for sure. But what this graph would look like, right, is just, we'd have kind of this shape. So this is, this would be 6, and this would be 0, and this is 1, right? This is also 1. But I want to take this graph and move it over to the right so it looks like this, right? I want this point to move over 1 to here, this point to move over 1 to 7, that kind of thing. So what I just need to do is shift it right 1, And we, of course, do that with to the right one would be -1. So we put a -1 in there, and that's it. So this is that wave function. And so just to kind of highlight again, some of the stuff you can see really quickly. Amplitude, you can see by looking at the midline and then just seeing how much above and below it is. That's just 3. We know it's shifted down because the midline is not on the x-axis anymore. It's shifted down 2. That's quick to see. You can get the period just by looking at, pick 2 nice points. We can count the distance. It's 6. 6 then equals 2 pi over b. Solve that for b. And then the one thing is, since I picked a cosine, my shift would be -1. But there's lots of other answers that would be correct here. That's just the one I picked.